All right, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're really tearing into a comeback that's been quite a while in the making. We're talking about the band Dream Evil and their brand new album, Metal Gods. 7 years it's been. Now, we've looked through a whole stack of articles, different reviews, really digging into this seventh album from them. And our mission, for this deep dive is to unpack why this album feels significant, what makes it, stand out right now in the metal scene, and ultimately what it means for heavy metal fans. We want to give you a concise but really thorough understanding of this release. Okay, let's get into it. So 7 years, that's the headline figure, right? Since their last album, Six, which came out way back in 2017. For a lot of fans, I imagine that 7-year gap felt, pretty long. But beyond just the wait, what does a gap like that actually mean for a band coming back? Especially, a band like Dream Evil with their particular place in metal history.
Yeah, it's interesting because, Dream Evil, they have this almost legendary status for people who remember that European heavy metal resurgence in the early to mid 2000s. But you're right, their actual studio output has slowed down quite a bit in the last, couple of decades, really. They were definitely one of Sweden's big traditional style bands after pioneers like Hammerfall and Wolf kind of paved the way. So yeah, this comeback isn't just, another album drop. It really could be a moment for them to sort of reclaim some of that past spotlight to reestablish themselves.
And they're pretty open about why it took so long, which was refreshing. For Nick Nordstrom, the guitarist and main guy behind the band, he actually said, and this is a quote, "We have just been lazy."
Ah, well, that's honest.
Right. But he did elaborate a bit, saying, it's been a long time, mainly because we were all busy, to be honest. We have so many children between us in the band, and it's hard to find time to get stuff together. So, life happens. But they did find the time, and now we have album number 7. People say 7's a holy number, right? So I guess the question is, can Metal Gods actually deliver that heavy metal salvation fans are hoping for?
The expectation is definitely high after such a break.
Absolutely. So with that, what kind of sound are they actually coming back with on Metal Gods? What's the core musical identity here?
Well, fundamentally, the formula hasn't really shifted all that much for Dream Evil, and honestly, that's probably exactly what their fans were hoping for. It still draws heavily on that gritty, early 80s heavy metal style, if you think bands like Manowar, maybe except. But it's got this overlay of a more modern power metal feel, that kind of pizzazz and kinetic energy. It's a cool mix, really. It respects the past, but doesn't sound dated. It feels, powerful and fresh.
Yeah, and you can't really talk about Dream Evil without mentioning, the cheese factor, can you?
Oh, you really can't.
Their reputation for massive amounts of cheese and those gloriously ESL lyrics. English is a second language lyrics that sometimes have that charmingly direct or almost unintentionally funny quality that fans just love. I saw the title track itself described as brilliantly cheesy.
Exactly. And for the fan base, that's not a criticism, right? It's part of the appeal. It's this totally unapologetic, over-the-top element. Someone described it, I think this is great, as a vat of molten Velvia poured in your ears. But delivered with such earnestness and conviction that it just works. It's definitely part of their thing within the genre. But it is important to mention, while you do hear keyboards on the album, they're really more in the background, adding texture. These songs are overwhelmingly driven by the guitar riffs. That's the heart of it, the power of the riff.
Right. So it sounds like they've really doubled down on that sort of early 2000s heavy metal vibe, delivering these big, mightily produced heavy metal anthems. It feels familiar, comfortable for longtime listeners. But, in today's metal scene, which is always evolving, is there a risk that sticking so close to that comfort zone might seem, maybe less innovative or just too nostalgic?
That's a fair question, but I think Metal Gods manages to avoid just being pure nostalgia. It does a good job of balancing that reverence for the past with a really modern, polished production. It's about delivering those classic heavy metal themes, but with the kind of force and sonic impact you expect from modern metal bands today. It bridges that gap pretty effectively. So I see it less as playing it safe and more like they're perfecting their signature style, but with this renewed energy and focus.
Okay, and speaking of production and that sonic impact, we absolutely have to talk about the man behind a lot of that sound, Fredrik Nordstrom. He's not just the guitarist and the mastermind of Dream Evil. He's a hugely respected producer in his own right. His resume is pretty incredible, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Nordstrom's influence as a producer on the metal scene is massive.
Yeah.
You can't really overstate it. He's the guy who basically sculpted the sound for so many classic melodic death metal bands were talking at the gates. In Flames, Dark Tranquility.
Mhm.
He really defined that crisp, powerful, yet melodic Swedish sound. And he didn't stop there. He's worked with power metal bands too, like Hammerfall, like Wolf. So that deep experience, that varied background, that's a huge reason why Metal God sounds so polished, so impactful. He just knows how to make heavy music sound huge and really cut through.
Yeah, that context is crucial.
Yeah.
And I found this description really evocative that Dream Evil is essentially Nordstrom's love letter to Ronnie James Dio. And everything Dio represented, guitar-driven heavy rock metal imbued with the spirit of heroism.
Yeah.
Does that personal connection, that tribute, come through in specific musical ways, beyond just the general vibe? Are there, direct nods listeners should pick up on?
Yes, definitely. That personal connection isn't just like a background idea. It's baked into the music itself. You hear it clearly in his signature songwriting style, and especially in the rhythmic riff work. It just has that classic heavy metal drive, that Dio-era Rainbow or Sabbath feel sometimes. That's what gives the guitars that huge sound we mentioned. It's not just a general heroic feeling. It's in the structure and the execution of the riffs. And it's not just him. The whole band sounds incredibly tight, really in tremendous form, like the reviews say. It feeds into that feeling of renewed energy we talked about.
Okay, let's get into the tracks themselves then. The reviews mentioned several powerhouse songs. Lightning Strikes, Fight in the Night, Night Stalker. What makes these particular ones stand out? What do they tell us about the album's overall punch?
Well, the title track, Metal Gods, is a fantastic way to open. It hits you right away with this militantly beefy crunch, as one review put it. And lyrically, it's great. Nicholas Isfelt, the singer, is basically recounting classic metal albums, a perfect meta-metal moment.
Yeah, I like that touch.
And you immediately notice the drumming, too. It's Søren Fardvik, the new drummer. This is his first recording with them, and he sounds really bombastic. Plus, you get some blistering lead guitar from Mark Black, who replaced Gus G. He really shreds on this track. Then you got songs like Masters of Arms, described as a Scorpions-like banger, which feels about right, and Insane, which is just, mercilessly infectious is a good way to put it. Super catchy.
Okay.
And then Fight in the Night, that one kicks up the tempo, brings in some fast pulsing, speed thrashing fury. Isfelt's vocals even get a bit of a Halford-like tinge there, which is cool. And Night Stalker brings that riff-happy thrashing that does kind of remind you of maybe modern Judas Priest. They're just pure high-energy heavy metal tracks.
Nice. But it's not all just thrash and speed, right? There are also these more epic-sounding anthems mentioned, like Chosen Force, The Tyrant Dies at Dawn, and YNA. What about those? What do they bring to the table?
Right, there's definitely a more epic dimension too, but the one that really seems to capture everyone's attention is the closer Y, or sometimes it's listed as YANA. Several sources called this out specifically. One said it's arguably the most distinctive thing to come from this outfit in over 20 years, which is quite a statement.
Wow, really? What makes it so special?
It apparently blends haunting balladry with these menacing early 80s Black Sabbath influences. It seems to have a depth and a mood that's maybe a bit unexpected, even for Dream Evil. It really steals the show, offering something different right at the end.
Interesting. Now, while the overall reaction seems really positive, a couple of reviews did mention that maybe the back half is weaker than the front. And one even singled out Born in Hell as, quote, the only track I'd even consider calling outright filler.
Do you think that slight dip, if it exists, really hurts the album overall? You know, it's pretty common for albums to have peaks and valleys in intensity or memorability. While some might find the front half stronger, I don't get the sense it dramatically tanks the album. The general level of quality and energy seems pretty high throughout, based on the reviews. And one thing that remains consistent, even if some songs are maybe less impactful than others, is Nicholas Isfelt's vocal performance. People note maybe a slight touch of age in his voice, which is understandable after all this time.
Sure.
But the consensus is he's just as compelling as he was over 2 decades ago. Still got that power. He's got this great way of channeling like Joachim Cans from Hammerfall, but also maybe Klaus Meine from Scorpions. That powerful, clear, anthemic delivery that just carries the songs.
Okay, so let's get to the bottom line then, the so what.
Yeah.
Who is this album actually for? I mean, let's be blunt. If you're not already into power metal or traditional heavy metal, Metal Gods probably isn't going to be the album that converts you, right?
No, probably not. It's very much an album for the existing believers, you could say.
Right. But if you are a fan of that style power, melodic, traditional heavy metal, then it sounds like you're going to find a lot to like here, loads to enjoy.
Absolutely. And what's interesting about its place right now is that Metal Gods doesn't seem to be trying to just, perfectly recreate 1983. It manages this balance. It clearly reveres the past, the classic sound, but it doesn't get bogged down just dwelling on it. It delivers these really polished, modern sounding songs that still have that classic force. It kind of shows how you can take those traditional metal ideas and make them work today with modern production values.
And the critics seem to agree. The reception sounds really positive, calling it easily the best album the band have done in years.
Hmm.
But what does that renewed critical praise actually mean for a band like Dream Evil, in a genre that, let's face it, isn't always topping charts or breaking massive new ground?
I think it's pretty significant, actually. It suggests there's still a real appetite out there for this kind of well-executed, honest, traditional heavy metal. In a music scene that's often chasing the next big innovation or the most extreme sound, Metal Gods stands out by being, well, confidently itself. It proves that sticking to your roots and just doing it really, really well can still be incredibly impactful. This album definitely seems to represent a renewed sense of drive and potency for the band, especially compared to their last couple of albums. It feels like a genuine statement, one that could really help them reclaim their former glory, as some have put it.
Well, there you have it. That wraps up our deep dive into Dream Evil's Metal Gods. It's been a look at a band showing real resilience, sticking to their sound, and making a pretty powerful return after quite a long break. Their dedication to that mix of power and traditional heavy metal really comes through, giving us an album that, yeah, it honors the past, but still hits hard today.
Definitely. So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Considering everything we've discussed about Metal Gods, how it mixes classic vibes with modern power, how it unapologetically embraces what it is, what core elements do you think make a heavy metal album truly timeless? And where does an album like Metal Gods fit into that ongoing legacy? Something to think about.